If I were to ask you a question right now, at this very moment, would you have the courage to answer it honestly? It's not a comfortable question. In fact, it should never be. So here it is. Do you know God? Or do you just know things about Him? Before answering, take a breath. Think, because this question has exposed kings, torn down masks, and ignited revivals. And if you are completely honest, you might discover that much of your faith has never gone beyond the surface. I'm not asking if you read devotionals. I'm not asking if you play music in church, if you're a leader, or if you give a good testimony. I'm not asking if you've been able to recite John 3:16 since childhood. I'm asking something else. When was the last time God's presence broke you? When was the last time His voice unsettled you to the point of altering your plans? When was the last time the scriptures touched a part of you that no one else can reach? When was the last time you truly felt that God spoke to you? C.S. Lewis once wrote, "We don't want a father in heaven. We want a spiritual assistant." And perhaps that's why many spend their entire lives informed about God, but never transformed by Him. The truth is harsh, and you've probably suspected this. Most people will die with an image of God that never corresponded to the living God. They will repeat Christian phrases. They will quote verses. They will say, "I believe." But Jesus never asked, "What did you declare?" He asked you in Matthew 7:23, "Did I know you?" And that is one of the most frightening statements in the Bible, because it makes it clear that it's not you saying you know God that counts. It's God saying He knows you. So, before we get into the 6 levels of intimacy with God, allow me something essential. This video is not for spiritual viewers, it's for seekers, because God doesn't reveal Himself to the curious. He reveals Himself to the hungry. And if you're here, maybe it's because something inside you, perhaps for years, has been calling you to a deeper place. A place where faith ceases to be theory and becomes experience. Prayer ceases to be habit and becomes dialogue. The Bible ceases to be text and becomes a sword, and God ceases to be a concept and becomes companionship. And before we move on, let me warn you, this path is not safe. No one reaches the last level unscathed, because intimacy with God always costs something, sometimes everything. Lewis said, "God whispers in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains, and often, it is this silent shout that pushes us closer to Him." Maybe you are hearing this call now. Maybe that's why you clicked on this video. Maybe you know that there is something deeper, more real, and more alive than what you have experienced so far. So here is the purpose of this video: to take you, step by step, through the 6 levels of intimacy with God, and to show you why so few reach the last one. Before we begin, write here in the comments, to mark your intention before God, just one sentence: "Lord, take me deeper." This remains between you and Him, but write if it resonated with you. Now, let's begin. Level 1, you know about God, but you still don't know Him. This is the stage where millions live and die without ever realizing it. It's the level of those who know verses, grew up listening to sermons, respect Christian values, believe that God exists, but have never truly experienced His presence. It's like admiring a bonfire from afar. You see the light, but you never feel the heat. C.S. Lewis described this phenomenon accurately when he said, "It is not enough to be touched by the light. You must allow it to transform you." And that is exactly what the multitude lacks: transformation. When we read the Gospels, we notice something curious. Jesus always had crowds around Him, but few people by His side. The crowds watched the miracles, applauded the teachings, admired His authority, but never walked with Him when it came to renunciation, the cross, or life change. They wanted the fish and bread, they wanted healing, they wanted relief and answers, but they didn't want communion. Many people live exactly like that today. They are Christians who go to church but never go to the secret place, talk about God but rarely talk to God, know arguments but don't know how to pray alone, read devotionals but never delve into the Bible on their own, and know the God of theory but not the God of intimacy. C.S. Lewis warned about this when he said, "Christianity is not a theory, it is an encounter. Without presence, without an exposed heart, you can spend decades inside a church and still be far from God." At this level, the person even talks about faith, but when crises come, they despair, they try to solve them alone, they fear the future more than they trust in God, and they quote verses but feel no peace. Because the truth is that information doesn't produce transformation. It's like knowing that a doctor exists and never schedule an appointment. The crowd lives like this. I believe God is love. I believe He can. But inside them, nothing changes. When God is just a concept, prayer becomes a formality. Church becomes just a habit. The Bible becomes a pretty book. Faith becomes an accessory. And spirituality becomes shallow, fragile, and unstable. C.S. Lewis expressed this masterfully. The greatest illusion is that you can know God without seeking Him. At the level of the crowd, no one truly seeks, they only observe. If you want to know if you are at this level, answer this question. If God took away everything you receive from Him, would you still seek Him? If the answer is difficult, welcome to level 1. And it's okay to recognize that. The danger is not being there. The danger is remaining there. God's invitation begins here, but He doesn't want you to end here. Before we move on to the next level, write in the comments, Lord, take me from the surface. This helps your mind register the commitment and helps the video reach more people seeking depth with God. Level 2, recognizing God, the stage of spiritual awareness. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people spend their entire lives between levels 1 and 2. They are not completely in the crowd, but they are not walking with God either. They live in this middle ground. They know God exists. They feel something. They are touched from time to time, but they remain at a distance. And here's the crucial point. Recognizing God is not the same as following Him. C.S. Lewis wrote, "It is not enough to admit that God is real. Even demons do, and tremble." And he was right. This second level is precisely that. You recognize God, but you still keep Him out the door. You are no longer just part of the curious crowd. Something inside you has begun to awaken. You know God exists. You feel something when you pray. You get emotional during worship. You get goosebumps when you hear a biblical passage that seems to speak directly to you, but you quickly return to your usual life. This is the level of awareness, not surrender. Of sensation, not transformation. Of spiritual curiosity, not intimacy. At level 2, you believe, but you still don't obey. You feel, but you still don't surrender. You recognize God, but you still don't let Him rule. It's like knowing that water exists and remaining thirsty because you don't drink. Level 1, the crowd, is ignorant. Level 2 is complacent, and that's more dangerous. Because now you know, now you perceive, now you are aware. You have felt God's hand knocking at the door, and yet you haven't opened it completely. This is the spiritual territory where many live for years and even decades. They say, I know God is calling me, but I'm not ready yet. I know I need to change, but it's not the right time yet. I know God wants something from me, but I'm afraid of what I'll lose. Here is the brutal truth that C.S. Lewis deeply understood. Sin is not only doing evil, it is also remaining comfortable in the wrong place. Level 2 is exactly that wrong place. See if this resonates with you. You feel spiritual guilt, but you don't change your behavior. You think about God, but you live disconnected. You remember that He exists, but you only talk to Him when something goes wrong. You recognize that you need to pray, but you don't pray. You feel that God wants closeness, but you keep your distance. Level 2 is the stage of awareness without commitment. Imagine someone standing in front of a door. The key is in their hand. The light is on the other side, and God is calling their name. At level 1, the person doesn't know there's a door. At level 2, the person is standing before it, but doesn't turn the key. This is where many die spiritually. They don't reject God, but they also don't receive Him. And as Lewis said, Christianity that doesn't change your life never changed your heart. He awakens, He nudges, He unsettles, He insists, He calls by name, He sends signals, He creates circumstances that make you look up. He takes away your false peace so that you seek the true one. Level 2 is the space where God begins to move heaven and earth to remind you that you belong to Him. God is saying, son, daughter, stop just recognizing me. I want you to know me. And here is the most important detail. At level 1, the crowd followed Jesus out of convenience. At level 2, you begin to follow Him out of awareness. But only at level 3 onward do you begin to follow Him out of conversion. How to get out of level 2? The answer lies in this question. Do you just want to feel God, or do you want to know Him? Because God does not reveal Himself to the indifferent, but He reveals Himself to the hungry. And this is the point where the video starts to get deeper. Because now, on the next level, God will not only touch you, He will transform you. The third level, experiencing the presence. Have you ever noticed how certain experiences simply mark you forever? It could be the birth of a child, an unexpected loss, or such an intense moment. It's true. You know, you'll never be the same again. This is the third level of intimacy with God, the level of encounter. And here I need to warn you, whoever reaches this level can never go back to superficiality. This is the moment when Christianity ceases to be theory and becomes a living reality. Now you don't just believe in God, you don't just talk about Him, you experience His presence. This is where many Christians begin to tremble internally because they realize something they never imagined. God is not an idea. God is not an energy in the sky. God is not a cultural symbol. God is the one who invades realities, including yours. Perhaps you have already experienced a moment like this. You were emotionally destroyed, and suddenly a peace that wasn't yours embraced you. You were about to give up, and a word entered your mind as if it had been whispered in your spirit. You were in a regular church service, and, without realizing how, tears began to fall, because something touched an area of you that no one else knew. Or perhaps you were in silence, alone, and felt as if God Himself was sitting beside you. These moments are not emotional. They are not psychological. They are not manufactured. They are invitations to something greater. And here is something that almost no one dares to say. The encounter is not the end of the journey. It is merely the door. And do you know what happens to many people? They confuse the invitation with the arrival. They spend the rest of their lives seeking thrills, repeating experiences, chasing sensations, living from church service to church service, wanting to feel God again. But God doesn't want to give you moments. He wants to give you maturity. C.S. Lewis warns of this in the phrase, "Emotions come and go, but what remains is the decision of the will." The encounter awakens, but does not sustain. God's goal is not that you feel something strong, but that you be profoundly transformed. If you've ever had a real encounter with God, you know that a single genuine visit from His presence breaks pride, heals hidden traumas, exposes what you were running from, rekindles things you thought were dead, unlocks spiritual doors you didn't even know existed, and redefines your life forever. Because God never touches someone without a purpose. He calls to transform. He transforms to send. The encounter is the birth. Intimacy is the growth. And many get emotional about the birth, but never become spiritual adults. God doesn't just want to visit you, He wants to dwell in you. And that's exactly what takes us to the next level. If you're ready, write "I want more of God" in the comments to signal to Him and to yourself that the encounter will not be your end point. Level 4. Walking with God, the stage of real intimacy. Now we come to the point where most never enter, and that's why most never change. This is the level at which the relationship ceases to be belief, ceases to be emotion, and ceases to be an isolated experience, and it becomes a journey. Yes, walking with God, not running, not occasionally stumbling, not visiting Him on Sundays, walking, step by step, day after day, mountains, valleys, storms, deserts, all of this side by side with Him. This is where God ceases to be a concept and becomes a companion. Walking with God doesn't mean asking Him to bless your path. It means abandoning your path to enter His. Does that hurt? Yes. Does that require renunciation? Yes. Will that separate you from some people? Yes. But nothing will shape your soul more than walking where He walks. C.S. Lewis said something precious. Following God is not going where He is, it's going where He is going. And that changes absolutely everything. Walking with God requires rhythm, not speed. Walking isn't glamorous. It isn't spectacular. It doesn't go viral. There are no spotlights. But if you notice, everything God did in the garden, He did while walking. He walked with Adam in the cool of the day, slowly, steadily, and with presence. The walk is intimate. The walk requires listening. The walk reveals who truly wants to be close. Many people want to run with God's blessings. Almost no one wants to walk with God's heart. This is where you surrender control. This is where you say, like Abraham, "Lord, where are we going?" And God answers, "To the place I will show you." No GPS, no dates, no details, and no spoilers of the destination. Because walking with God isn't about arriving quickly. It's about learning who He is while you're still on the path. And here is the most precious secret of this level. God's voice begins to become familiar. Not a sporadic echo, not an emotional shiver, not something you confuse with imagination, but familiar, clear, intimate, and recognizable, like the voice of someone you love. C.S. Lewis wrote, "Obedience is the instrument by which we find joy," and that is exactly what the walk produces. a heart attuned to the point of obeying without debate. But there is a warning. Walking with God will cost you things. It will cost you toxic friendships. It will cost you habits that numb you. It will cost you plans that were only yours, not His. And it will cost you the need for human approval. But everything God asks, He asks only because He wants to take you to a place you wouldn't reach alone. Whoever walks with God loses emotional weight, spiritual weight, the weight of expectations that should never have been theirs. And then comes the most striking moment of this level. You stop saying, "Lord, walk with me," and you start saying, "Lord, where are you going? I want to go to." That's relationship. That's friendship. That's spiritual maturity. And that's why very few reach level 6. Because before being one with God, you need to learn to walk with Him, step by step, without haste, without demands, and without resistance. Do you walk with God, or do you just ask Him to walk with you? Comment below. I read all the comments. Level 4, loving God. Now we come to the point where many stumble, and few remain. Because this level requires not only faith, nor only discipline, it requires soul. It requires you to let go of pretense, self-protection, and the need to appear strong. This is the level of real intimacy with God. And intimacy, as C.S. Lewis rightly said, is not made of pretty words, but of sincere surrender. Here, you don't follow God out of fear of hell. You don't seek Him because you want blessings. It's not about being seen as a good Christian. Here, you love Him, and loving Him makes everything inside you shift. When you truly love God, you stop trying to impress Him. You stop trying to negotiate with Him. You stop trying to appear strong before Him. You learn to say, "Lord, here is who I really am, hurt, confused, imperfect, but yours." Lewis said something very profound. God doesn't want something from us. He wants us. And that's exactly what happens at this stage. You realize that there is no holiness without vulnerability. God doesn't heal what you hide. He heals what you surrender. When you love someone deeply, obedience is not a sacrifice, it's joy. Jesus said, "If you love me, you will keep my commandments." John 14:15. But love changes the question. You no longer ask, "How far can I go without sinning?" But rather, "How can I be more like Him?" This is where you begin to voluntarily abandon what grieves His heart, not out of guilt, but out of devotion. Here, God's presence becomes your oxygen. It's not an exaggeration. You literally miss Him when you go a day without being in prayer. And I'm not talking about religious, memorized, and rehearsed prayer. I'm talking about talking to God in the kitchen, in the car, walking to work, folding clothes, and washing dishes. The kind of conversation David had when he said, "Your presence is better than life." When you love Him, God ceases to be a ritual and becomes a relationship. It is at this level that God touches the places you have never let anyone touch. He begins to heal childhood wounds, traumas, hidden addictions, buried guilt, memories you sweep under the rug, insecurities you pretend not to have, and sins you try to rationalize. And it hurts, but it heals. Why? Because He uses pain to uproot what is killing us inside. And here you let Him, because now you trust Him enough to say, "Lord, work on everything, even what hurts. Just don't leave me the same." You stop trying to appear holy, and you begin to desire to be holy. You don't read the Bible to mark a habit. You read because your soul thirsts. You don't pray to fulfill a duty. You pray because you can't stay away from Him. You don't fight against sin for morality. You fight because you love God more than you love your desires, and that changes everything. Because sin ceases to be a transgression and becomes a betrayal, not out of fear, but out of love. You understand the difference between religion and passion. Religion says, "Do this or God will turn away." Love says, "Do this to get closer to Him." Religion gives you rules. Love gives you life. C.S. Lewis once said, "Every deep human desire is an invitation to go deeper into God." And that's what happens here. God becomes your desire, not your object of study. Here you realize you don't want anything else besides Him. You don't want status. You don't want recognition. You don't want a stage. You don't want praise. You don't want to seem spiritual. You want God, and that's all. And the world will find this strange. People will say you're exaggerating. Some will say you're fanaticistic. But you know, the truth is you're finally alive. God becomes your home. No matter where you are, in a dark room, on a crowded bus, in a busy market, when you start talking to Him, you feel like you've come home. This is where you begin to experience something rare and powerful. intimacy with the creator of the universe. This is where many stop, because loving like this requires dying. It requires letting go. It requires surrendering. But this is where true life begins. Before we go to the final level, the level that very few achieve, say in the comments, "I want to truly love God." This is not just any comment. It is a spiritual declaration. Take a deep breath, because this is the most important part of your entire journey. We have reached the 6th level, a level that few achieve because it demands everything. And before continuing, let me remind you of something C.S. Lewis said, which fits like a divine key at this moment. The Christian does not think that God will love us because we are good, but that God will make us good because He loves us. This is the spirit of the last level. It's not about what you have to offer. It's about what you allow yourself to become. And now, let's finish this journey. Level 6 being one with God. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. Galatians 2:20. Here, the search ends and the fusion begins. Here, you not only follow Jesus, you become a living expression of Him. This is the point where your voice becomes an echo of His voice. Your decisions flow from His will. Your heart beats to the rhythm of His heart. Your life ceases to be your own and becomes an extension of the kingdom. It's not a metaphor. It's not poetic. It's literal, spiritual, and profound. Here, you cease to be a vessel and become a river. C.S. Lewis spoke about this when he wrote, "The more we let God take control of us, the more truly we become ourselves." This is the paradox of union with God. When you surrender everything, you receive everything. When you die, you live. When you surrender, you are lifted up. And now, the hard truth. Most Christians never get here, not because God hides the way, but because this is the level that demands the crucifixion of the ego, the agenda, the my way, the wills that clash with heaven, the I think, I feel, I want. Here, your prayer changes. You stop saying, "Lord, thy will be done," and start saying, "Lord, thy will is my will." There is no more internal dispute. There is no more resistance. There is no more division. You are unified. And when that happens, the world knows. Because when you speak, the atmosphere changes. When you enter a room, the light comes along. When you touch someone, Christ touches. You stop representing God. You reveal God. Now that we have gone through the 6 levels, it doesn't matter what you have already experienced. It doesn't matter your spiritual age. It doesn't matter your history. The final question is simply this: are you satisfied where you are? Or is there within you an echo, a hunger, a longing, a silent cry saying, "I want more of God. I want to go deeper. I want to become what I was created to be"? Because listen, the greatest spiritual tragedy is not falling. It is stagnating. It is stopping at level 2 when God called you to level 6. It is living like a crowd when He called you to intimacy. It's about surviving in faith when He has called you to unity. C.S. Lewis warned us with a phrase that chills the soul. We are half-hearted creatures, playing with drink, sex, and ambition, when infinite joy is offered to us. Don't accept crumbs when the Father offers a banquet. Don't accept superficiality when you were born for depth. Don't accept living knowing about God when you were created to live within Him. Don't wait. Don't delay. Don't say someday. This is the moment. Right now, where you are. Say, "God, I want to know you. Not from afar, not halfway, not superficially. I want to go deeper. I want to go further. I want to be yours, completely yours." And He, who never rejects a broken heart, will come. And He will begin a work that can change not only your life, but your eternity. God be with you. Until the next video.